Welcome everybody to a new My Hero Academia video. Guys, today I bring to you a tier list for the buffs in Mock Trial. This tier list was made by Mo Jorge. Thank you so much for letting me use this tier list. Very useful, super useful actually. I've been using it myself, and he only asked me to give a big shout out to the One Punch server the One Punch Alliance in server 30. There we go. The One Punch Alliance in server 30. So big shout out to them. If you want a really active alliance, I'm sure you can request to go with those guys if you're on server 30. So big shout out, and thank you one more time for letting me use this awesome tier list. So before we begin, guys, I want to quickly go over what he wrote that each of the tiers actually mean, because I don't want you guys to look at a legendary in C tier and think that it's bad or anything. So let me just say word for word what each tier means for the original author of the tier list, right? So basically tier S is always pick this, tier A is great picks, tier B solid picks, tier C can be good, tier D is mediocre or too situational, tier E is bad, and tier F is just useless. All right, so just so that we are clear, the actual bad, outright bad buffs start on E, right? Anything above E is either, you know, situational or just usable and good and excellent and must pick, right? So with that out of the way, I had the guide already made. Of course, there are two that are repeated because it wouldn't be a tier list by me if there weren't two repeated. It wouldn't be a tier list made by J Games if it didn't have two repeated pictures that I can't remove. So yeah, let's just go over it. But first of all, let me show you guys that if you look at this guide zoomed out like this, you can see that there are certain archetypes that keep popping up, right? You can see the full drop right there, 1 2 3 4 5 drops, right? That is the no damage archetype. There is also the halfway drop, which is the dying archetype. If you guys remember, the dying archetype is the one that Kurt recommends to farm up to like mid game in mock trial, right? So yeah. Then we have also this one that's like a stamina can sort of, right? And it has an R on it because this is the alt archetype, right? So basically this one focuses on alts pretty much, like the name says so, right? The blue ones don't really belong to an archetype, and neither do the legendary ones. This is one thing that I forgot to mention, there are no character specific buffs here, because usually they're just must picks. Honestly, they just improve your character, so they're usually must picks, unless you find them like next to maybe S tier, the S tier buffs, maybe the A tier buffs depending on your build, but usually like character buffs are must picks. So let's just go over this tier list. Let me zoom in so that we can actually read what they actually do. So first of all, we have Mountain Courage, right? Mountain Courage says increases damage by 500%. So 5 times your regular damage for 5 seconds after defeating an enemy. And if you guys have played this mode, you know that it's plagued with mobs. I don't think I've ever encountered a fight that is just a single enemy. I don't think so, unless the final fight in normal mode is a single fight, but I can't remember honestly. But endless mode is just mobs after mob after mob after mob. So 500 times your damage for 5 seconds, 5 seconds with 500 times your damage, right? That's more than enough, more than plenty enough time to clear an entire wave. For sure, because you have to keep in mind that if you're in endless mode, right, and you're fighting a mob, this is not the only buff that you have. You're gonna have many buffs because you have all the buffs that you brought over from normal mode, right? So all of the buffs that you already have, plus this on top, you're gonna be clearing waves like it's nothing, right? So yeah. Then we have our skills damage increases by 150%. The reason why this is so high is because both Deku and Momo's ults have a very nice range. They're not the biggest, the most like the widest ultimates, but they're pretty wide, they're pretty nice, and they'll usually land and hit a lot of enemies unless the AI gets really confused if you're playing on auto, right? So this is really, really good. The ultimates already deal a ton of damage. Obviously, they're your most damage dealing abilities, right? So increasing it by 1.5%, or I'm sorry, 150%, I don't know what I'm saying. Increasing their damage by 150% is huge. Huge. You're going to be dealing insane damage with this. Also keep in mind, because I know that you're thinking, oh, I'll only ever do like one multi or two multis. Well, this is endless mode. You're going to be using your ult all the time because it's endless mode, right? 25 waves. So you will definitely use like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, probably more if you have any other of the ult archetype buffs. You're going to be using your ult a lot, and it's going to help you accelerate the climb in endless mode, right? Because you might just like wipe an entire wave with a nicely landed ultimate, right? So you need to keep that in mind. Then we have counter buff 2 on tier A. Tier A, let me tell you real quick. Tier A says that these are great picks. All right, so keep that in mind. We are going with great picks now. So okay, my community is pinging me for because we have more login events. Okay, I'll cover that in a different video in a second. So let's see. We have counter buff 2. Increases all damage by 150% for 10 seconds after perfect dodge. I know what you're thinking. Perfect dodge? Who the f uses perfect dodge, right? Dude, perfect dodge. This is 150% for 10 seconds. If you're playing on auto, the AI actually does perfect dodge quite a bit. Perfect dodge, for those of you who don't know, is when you are about to get hit and you dodge right in time and then time slows down. When time slows down and you get to counter, that is perfect dodge. And this is 10 seconds. This doesn't last for the counter duration, right? That you're not, like a lot of people feel like they're forced to press and counter. You're not. A lot of the time it's just a DPS loss to press on the counter. So this is 10 seconds. Even if you do counter, like the whole counter animation, I think it lasts for like 2-3 seconds, maybe 4. You still have 6 seconds of 150% increase on your damage. That is a lot. And like I said, if you're playing on auto, the AI is actually going to be perfect dodging quite a lot. So this is very, very good. Then increases perfect dodge damage by 500%. So basically, this is what it means by perfect dodge damage is the counter, right? So when you perfect dodge and then you do your counter, you're going to be dealing 5 times your damage. That is quite a lot. That is quite a lot. Remember that this increases all damage by 150% second after your perfect dodge, and this increases your perfect dodge damage. So if you pick this one, remember that you do need to counter to get use out of it. If you're playing on manual, right? The AI sometimes does skip the auto, so maybe this one should be we should bump it down a little bit. But 500 times your damage is a lot. It is a lot. So, you know, up here, if you're manualing, up, down a little bit lower if you're going on auto. So then we have no damage, or well, no damage is the archetype, and then damage buff 2. Damage buff 2 says damage increases by 100% and damage taken increases by 25%. So this is a trade-off, right? The no damage archetype is basically based on the idea that you will get big buffs, but you can't get hit because you need to be above a certain health threshold, right? So this is the best buff within that archetype. It gives you 100% extra damage, so basically doubles your damage, and but you take 25% more. It's not really a big deal. On the lower stages, as you climb, it's going to become a little tricky, but you know, it's a good trade-off, especially right now that we're like most people are on the early to mid game. It's good, it's decent. It's pretty nice. It's a great pick. I'm just climbing. It's climbing. Okay. Anyways, then we have alt, the archetype, late damage. Damage increases by 100% for 20 seconds after using our skill. So again, same thing, right? You're gonna use your ultimate a lot, and 20 seconds of your damage being doubled is a lot. You guys need to always think in the context that you will have many other buffs besides just the one that we are looking at right now. So this is very good. You will duplicate your damage for 20 whole seconds. That is a lot. That is a lot. Then we have, if you actually build up an alt archetype, right? So if you build up a character like Momo or Deku with a bunch of these buffs, right? So that you can spam your ultimate all the time, and you can spam your ultimate within 20 seconds, you're gonna build up your damage quite a lot. So then we have Dying, right? Damage buff. Dying is the archetype. It's the one that I was telling you guys in the guide. Dying basically requires you to be below 50% health. We already talked about this in the mock trial guide. This is a great archetype for farming tickets at the beginning of the game, right? In the early stages of the game. Maybe not so great once you start actually climbing a little bit higher in Endless, because you know, obviously being below 50% damage, it's quite dangerous. But honestly, guys, a lot of people have told me that the highest floors that they've managed to get to are with builds that revolve around the Dying archetype. So very, very, very good. This one says increases damage dealt by 90% when HP is below 50%, right? So when it comes to the Dying archetype, you can't just pick it out of the blue. You do need to like if this one pops up after a fight, you need to keep in mind like whether or not you have another Dying buff, right? Another Dying archetype buff in the shop so that you can complement it, because on their own they're not going to be that great. They will help you go through normal mode because you can lose health with 13, right? By picking the middle option with 13. But if you pick this and then you have no way of lowering your health in Endless mode, this is pretty much going to be a dead buff until you get to the highest floors and you start taking some serious damage, right? So another thing that I mentioned before in the guide is that, you know, sometimes you can maybe pair it with this, right? With the no damage buff 2, because you will take more damage. But again, that is kind of like a double-edged sword, right? So yeah, moving on, we have B. We need to move a little faster because this is going to last forever otherwise. Let's see. So B tier basically says solid picks. These are solid picks, right? And there's a lot of them. So we have sweep. Sweep increases damage dealt to enemies below 20% HP by 220%. So basically, this is basically an execute, right? I think this is very good. I would personally put it a little bit higher, maybe on A. I think this is very, very good to finish off waves. This is going to synergize very nicely with your ultimate, with an alt sort of build, because your alt will deal a lot of damage in an AoE, especially if you use Momo, right? It will deal damage in a big AoE, so then you can just execute everyone, right? You're gonna have a lot of enemies with low health, and you just execute them, you just sweep them, literally sweep them, right? I really, really like this one. I would personally put it on A, but we are not doing my own tier list right now. So moving on, we have no damage buff 1. When HP is above 70%, increases damage by 120%. And then it says getting something. Let me tell you real quick what it actually says. It says negated when hit for 10 seconds. So basically that is what the no damage archetype is kind of based around, right? They synergize well with this counter sort of buffs, right? This legendary counter buffs, because the idea is for you to not take damage. This buff will give you 120%, but you cannot get hit. If you get hit, you will lose the 120% buff for 10 seconds. So I don't really like it. I would personally put it lower, at least C tier, maybe even D. I don't really like this archetype at all, but again, this is not my tier list. So moving on. Damage enhancement, damage increases by 40%, straight up. Pretty good, really good. Basically, all of the blue buffs that you can see right here are buffs that you should look for when you start a new run. If you guys don't know, when you start a new run, you get a random blue buff. So you should always look out for this four. You can re-roll as many times as you want a run, so you should always re-roll for one of this buffs, because they're just straight up buffs. No trade-offs, no complicated archetypal conditions or anything like that. They're just buffs. This one is a damage increase by 40%. This one increases normal attack damage by 125%. Very good for Deku. Attack increase by 40%. Super good. Increases damage dealt to enemies by 40% within a certain range. The range is actually very generous, so that's very good. It's basically another damage 40%. And then we have another dying buff. This one is a normal attack buff. Increases normal attack damage by 250% when HP is below 50%. As you can see, the buffs are insane. Like, the buffs are insane for this, right? For this archetype, because it's a huge trade-off. You're trading half of your life, half of your health to have these buffs. If you guys don't know, you share your health across the entire normal mode, right? So you have to run the entire normal mode, and maybe you're running normal difficulty or hard difficulty. I wouldn't know how that feels, because they won't let me because I don't have Momo. So if you're doing like hard difficulty, that is a huge trade-off. 50% of your health for a massive 250% normal attack damage is a lot. This one is lower than this 90% damage dealt increase, because this one is better on Deku than Momo. Deku auto attacks a lot. Momo has more abilities, again, especially if you're using auto. The AI really likes to use Momo's abilities a lot. So yeah. Then we have C tier. Let me tell you what C tier means. Can be good. So basically, these are buffs that you need to keep in, like, when you see them, you need to take a look at what you already have. Or if you're starting the run, you need to take a look at what's in your store in order to decide whether to pick them or not. Because these are skills that will need a little bit of synergy, right? If you guys notice, like this one, for example, I would put it lower because of that same reason, right? I think this one is a little more synergistic than good on a bubble. All these four buffs are just, these blue buffs are all good, great choices, because they're all good in a bubble, right? They're just straight up buffs. There are no conditions. There are no synergistic needs or anything like that. Yes, I know my vocabulary is on fire today. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for noticing. And then we have increases damage dealt to enemies above 80% HP by 220%. So this one, this one was originally a little bit higher. I think it was on B tier. I put it lower myself because I hard disagree with putting this on B tier. I think this is, I don't really see this being that great unless you are doing a burst sort of build, which would basically be an alt build. I think this buff particularly synergizes nicely with what is it called? I forgot. Alt archetypes, right? With the alt archetype, because this is basically a burst sort of buff, right? You need to deal burst damage to an enemy that is full health in order to take full advantage of this, right? Otherwise, if you're taking chip damage if you're dealing chip damage on your enemy, it's just going to, like you're doing 20% and then that's it. If it takes too long for you to defeat an enemy, then this buff becomes really useless, right? So that's why I'm not really sold on putting it a little higher. Then we have Ult Recharge. Restores 45 ultimate energy after using R skill. So this in a bubble is not that great, but imagine having this plus this. Plus this, right? Imagine having this plus this. R skill's damage increases by 150%. Or imagine having this too. Damage increased by 100% for 20 seconds after using R skill, right? So you'll spam your ultimate a lot, and then you're gonna have so much damage increase, right? Or here, right? Like that's what I'm telling you guys. If you see this and you know that in your shop you have this or this, right? Then you can pick it. You can pick it safely, knowing that it's going to be very, very good, right? If you have this in the shop, or I don't think this can pop up in the shop, but if this pops up and you have this in the shop, you can pick this because it's going to be good. It's going to synergize nicely with this. Maybe not this too particular, but I don't know. You guys know what I'm saying. I'm wasting too much time. You guys know what I'm trying to say. So this one restores 5% ultimate energy every second when HP is above 70%. Again, this is a no damage archetype that actually synergizes well with the alt archetype, right? You don't need to pick every little symbol that, right? No, you don't need to pick every symbol or every buff with the full drop symbol, or every buff with the R symbol. Some of them, even though they're from different archetypes, they synergize well with each other, right? So this one is a very nice pick if you have this, if you have this, if you have this in your shop or in your buff collection already, right? Keep in mind, guys, that sometimes if you get a few good synergistic buffs, even if they don't synergize well with what you have right now, you can always sell the buffs that you get and just buy others that synergize better. But this is a very niche kind of situation. I'm not going to waste time with that. So this one is actually the opposite. So oh wait, not the opposite, never mind, I didn't say anything. This one says Dying Middle Ground. This is the skill that this is the skill that I was talking to you guys about in the guide. This is a skill that is kind of mandatory if you're going to go for a dying archetype. You actually need this. This is the core of that build. This one loses 5% HP every second when HP is above 50% until you are at 50%, and if you're below 50%, it heals you for like 0.1% every second or something like that, something ridiculously low. So this is the core of your build. If you're going for the dying archetype, you need to pick this. If you see this first, you can pick it safely and then just try, if you have some of this on the shop, right? And you know that it's going to be great, right? Because this will drain your health in seconds in endless mode, and you will climb easy because you will always be below 50%, and therefore you will always have this 250%, 90%, 9% and 30% buff to your stats, right? So this is the core of the dying build. If you want to go with the dying archetype, you need to find this, right? So if you want to follow the guide that I made earlier, you can just try to prioritize finding this in the first 1 or 2 stages, or re-roll your run if you can't find it, or in your shop, right? I think that would be a great idea because, like I said, the dying archetype is the most powerful one. It's the one that it's actually probably going to carry you the most, at least in the early to mid game. Then we have dying crit buff. Crit rate and crit damage increases by 9% and 30% respectively when your HP is below 50%. So super good, almost 10% of crit rate, 30% crit damage. That's very, very nice. It's going to synergize well with other stuff like this, right? Anything that increases your attack, your damage, because it's crits, right? Obviously you want crits. So obviously don't pick this if you're not going for a dying archetype, because it's gonna be a dead buff pretty much. So yeah. Then we have D tier. So D tier is mediocre or 2 situational, right? That doesn't mean that they're not going to be good in certain situations, right? You just need to you really need to like pay a lot of attention to what you have and what you can potentially have when deciding whether or not to grab this buffs. So we have first alt crit buff. So basically what that does is it gives you plus 15% and plus 50% on crit and crit damage respectively after you use your ult for 20 seconds, right? So I think this one is all right. It's not as solid as a damage increase because it's just a 15% crit rate. So you need to keep in mind that it's for 20 seconds, right? So it's kind of situational. A good point where I guess you could use this is if you're doing sort of like a hybrid build where you have some of the alt archetype sort of buffs, right? If you have some of this, that will let you spam your ultimate, and you have this, and you also have the dying archetype, a little bit of the dying archetype, right? Maybe it could be good because you can pile up the crit rate. I don't know. It's very situational. It really depends on what your buffs are. Depends on what your skills are, the skills that you've bought, stuff like that. So yeah, that's what this tier is about basically. Then we have no damage speed up. Increases movement speed by 20% and attack speed by 15% when HP is above 70%. Well, movement speed and attack speed are not as important as damage, crits, and abilities like executing enemies and stuff like that. So again, very situational. If you already have a lot of damage buffs, a lot of crit buffs and stuff like that, then this is not bad. Then we have increases penetration by 15% when HP is above 70%. Same thing. If you have a lot of attacks, a lot of crit, a lot of stuff like that, then you can pick this safely. It's fine. Increases attack speed by 7.5%. Same thing. Increases crit rate by 15%. See, this and something like this would synergize very nicely, because now you would have 30% crit rate for 20 seconds. That is a lot. That is quite a lot. So this and this could synergize pretty well. So if you get this at the start of your run, and then this pops up at some point, you can grab this. It's okay, especially if you have stuff like this, right? It's gonna synergize well. Crit damage, same thing, a little less reliable than this. I might put this on E, maybe, if it was my tier list, but yeah, because I feel like it's a little bit less reliable than this. Then we have decreases dodge cooldown by 20%. This is just, I don't know, I would definitely put it on F. I don't really like that. Then we have because the dodge cooldown is not that long. It's like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, I don't know, but it's not that long. It's not that necessary. Then we have increases movement speed by 20%, attack speed by 15% when HP is below 50%. Again, same thing. It's very situational. If you already have a lot of attack, a lot of crit, a lot of stuff like that, then you can go for this. It's okay. Then we have E. E tier, let me tell you, is bad. These are just bad choices. So we have Generous Gift. Generous Gift gives you an additional 15 buff mixtures after clearing a stage. Buff mixtures are the P bottles that you give to Aizawa so that he sells you buffs. So yeah, 15 bottles is nothing because they cost a few hundred P bottles each buff. So this is really just like inconsequential, honestly. Then we have Invincible. Gain 3 seconds of invincibility when HP is below 3%, and I think it recovers like 9% health. After that, if it would recover like 20% of your health, that would be more significant, but 9% heal. If you're at 3%, it's because you're fighting a really strong enemy, and 9% they're just gonna laugh in your face, right? So yeah, this is inconsequential. Gain a shield equal to 12% of max HP at the start of the fight. Again, just 12% max HP. You much rather have like an attack 40% attack buff. Like, this is just really inconsequential. Increased damage dealt to enemy with shield by 75%. I think this was initially higher, but I put it lower myself because I haven't really seen enemies with shields in this mode at all. So I really like, I would put it on F. I don't see any use for this whatsoever. Then we have F, which is just trash. Don't pick them ever. They're useless. And basically we have increased max HP by 20%. It's just HP, and you're probably grabbing this instead of something like I don't freaking know, like this, right? Which is still bad, but it's definitely better. It's going to increase your DPS. Max HP is just going to increase your survivability, but if you don't have enough damage, it's useless. Especially in endless mode, what do you care about HP in endless mode? You need damage to burst down stuff because your time is going to run out, right? Received damage decreases by 15%, same thing. Increased movement speed, same thing. All skills cooldown times refresh after using R skill. I would put this maybe on the, conditional. You could burn down everything and then just, use your ult and then have this. The cooldowns are a little long on Deku, especially. I don't know about Momo, but on Deku I can see this maybe on D tier, depending on your build. And then we have skill recovery, recovers 12% HP when using special skill for the first time. That is completely useless, it will heal you, but again, you're just trading this for damage. It's just not worth it. This would be maybe a little bit worth it because you just use your ult and now you can use all of your damage, all of your abilities again, so you can deal damage again. So I can see this being helping your DPS a little bit, not significantly, but a little bit. So yeah, guys, that is the tier list. Let me know what you guys think. This is a very long video. I'm sorry I rambled on a lot, but I hope this helps you guys. I hope you get really hyped. Tell me in the comments what floor did you reach following this this tier list, and let me know if you disagree, if you think we should change something. One more time, thank you so much to Mo Jorge for letting me use his tier list. Big shout out to the One Punch Alliance in server 30, and I'll see you guys on the next one.